I will be really frank about something on stage. Motivation was very overhyped thing for me. Watching motivational speakers, inspiring lectures never suited me. In fact, I always thought it was we who were trying to convince ourselves through words, others' words, without actually doing anything. But then, 2 months ago, I witnessed a speech in person that changed my perspective towards such speeches. When someone who has experienced unreal things comes and speaks in person in front of us, I feel there is no motivation greater than that experience sharing. It is an absolute pleasure, honor, and a fan moment for me as I introduce the final speaker for the day, Mr. Sai Prasad Viswanathan. A leader, an entrepreneur, change maker, a pioneer, Mr. Sai Prasad Vishwanathan says, the number of times you are hurt, insulted, and failed will not matter on the day you will achieve what your heart wants. A gold medalist from CBIT, a scholar, MS Computer Science from University of Wisconsin, and an MBA from I.S.B. Mr. Sai works for Deloitte as a management consultant. An adventure freak in 2008, while in the US, he became the first physically challenged Indian to skydive from 14,000 feet. In 2012, he was out exploring Grand Canyon and its billion-year sediments in a chopper ride. In 2013, he became the first Asian with a disability to set foot on the Antarctic Continent. Give it up for our last speaker of the event, Mr. Sai Prasad Vishwanathan.
Yeah. Check if it works. Is it working? The slides. Oh, it's ready. Okay. First up, I thank everyone for turning up in spite of the rain. That introduction, ma bhashalo sonta dabba antaru. So that is not at all true. But just to set some context, if you can change the slides. In 1984, a couple in South India fell in love, and they sang Pyar Kiya To Darna Kya, and they got married. And a year later, the dar happened, which means I happened. And when I was born, my parents were shocked because here was a part of my body, my spinal cord coming out of the body. And the doctor said the kid might not even survive more than 12 days. And effectively, my mom had attitude problems. She looked at me and she said, I will name this kid Prasad, a blessing. And effectively, in between all of these conflicts and confusion, a major operation happened. The spinal cord was removed and a part of it was stitched. Lower half of my body lost sensation. I had bladder conditions and bowel movement problems. The doctor said I cannot walk forever. And a lot of things actually happened. Subsequently, I picked up injuries and the injuries became worse. Okay, I'll change the slide, please. Okay, and I reached a phase where over the years, people have forgotten what to call me also. Okay, there is a new term going around these days to call people with disabilities. It's called physically challenged. I mean, it's like calling a single guy romantically challenged, or calling Sunday as differently or Monday as differently Sunday. Okay, the simple part, some people say disability is a state of mind. I remember going to my college and there were 3 floors. I looked at it, is it a state of mind? No, it's 3 floors. So at the end of the day, one of the ways we solve our problems in this country is we constantly change the language and we think the problem is over. I remember one of the most beautiful moments in life when one of the parents of another child or another student with disability came to me, and she looked at me, and given that I was the college topper, she came along with her daughter, and she said, look at this boy, he has a disability, he has climbed 3 floors, he has topped the college, he has studied. So you also climb 3 floors, you also will succeed and all that. In our country, unfortunately, inspiration, the term inspiration basically means that when someone is suffering, we look at that suffering and then we tell that person has suffered and that person has overcome, so you also suffer, you will also overcome. That is not inspiration. True inspiration, as per me, is asking why exactly is the suffering happening in the first place. Any person who is inspiring to you and you as engineers are required to identify what is the problem behind suffering, what is the true cause of the suffering, and that, my friends, is where the very definition of innovation starts. And when I looked at my life and I looked at the suffering part, I told my father one day after my graduation, given that I topped my college, I said, Nana, in America kelli MS chadukunta ani. So he laughed. Then I told my dad, Dad, I am serious. Then he got serious and I laughed. So effectively, there were a lot of problems. We started fighting in the house. Dad shouted at me. When dad shouts at me, mom cries. When mom cries, sister cries. When sister cries, dad gets angry even more, and that shouting happens. This is called avalanche effect. In physics, you might have learnt it. Meanwhile, in between all of this, there is a beautiful person in my life. Not a girlfriend, but the only woman in my life who has followed me entirely. She's the Pakinta auntie. Okay, in days where there was no Orkut, no Facebook, no Twitter, no Insta, she followed my life. Okay, so when the fight was happening, she put a status to the colony saying, "Veelli intlo godava jarugutundi ani." 20 aunties liked it, 30 aunties commented on it, 40 aunties shared it. And effectively, we became the nuisance story of the life. And effectively, as I grew forward, it became a mental challenge. I mean, I remember one day, I had taken the GRE and I had gone ahead and gotten admitted into Stanford University and University of Wisconsin-Madison with a scholarship. And effectively, when an article was published, the auntie asked me saying, "Ayya babu ellagalugutava, nu bus ekkagalugutava, nu vantal cheskogalugutava, మీ చెల్లికి పెళ్ళి అవుతుందా?" And I was like, నేను ఎంఎస్ చేయాలనుకుంటున్నా ఆంటీ, and so on and so forth. When you are thinking of innovation, two things come default in the Indian community. One, conflicts. Two, comments. Okay, so effectively, think of this. You don't need to do anything in life. You don't need to do anything. Just have a dream. Automatically, people will come in our community and give you comments and conflicts. So when I finally flew to the US, when I finally flew into the US, then came all of these thoughts in my head, saying, here I was a gold medalist in college, just trying to dream to educate myself higher. Why is it that it has become such a big problem into the country? So I started reading. I was alone. I didn't know what to do. My friends found girlfriends. I found a book called Bhagavad Gita, which a lot of people seem to be reading here. And I found this man telling something very, very interesting. Before I read this book, though, something very interesting happened. When I first went into the US, I saw this amazing facilities for people with disabilities. Amazing facilities. And I made a fantastic video on what are all the challenges and support systems that are present to overcome the challenges for people with disabilities abroad. I put that video on YouTube. 2 people watched it, me and my friend. Because I was like, please watch it. It is informational content and so on and so forth. Nobody was interested. Then I started to think, why is it that in our country, when we go ahead and tell something nice, something true, something good, nobody is interested. But Jai Balaya, everybody screams behind the whole thing. So at that particular point, even as I was thinking, I started going deep. Then this man came into my life. I started reading his book with all the tension that I had in life. He said, all disability is because of bad karma. All disability is because of bad karma. That word has gone ahead and traumatized so many people. Even as I'm sitting in front of you here, I've spoken to almost 10 mothers in the last 3 weeks who have always been abused consistently when their child has been born with a disability, that this is because of the bad karma that you have done, and so on and so forth. And look at the definition of karma. One other perspective. You saw 2 perspectives here. One other perspective. Karma says, if you do something bad, bad will happen to you. But when you do something good, don't expect results. What sort of law is that? I mean, common sense dictates that there is something wrong with that constraint. I mean, how can something bad automatically happen to me when I did something bad? But when I do good, don't expect results and all. This is something massively screwed up. So I went on to read that book further, and it said life is composed of 5 elements: sky, earth, water, fire, air. And then God said only a person with complete spinal cord and abilities can experience all the 5 elements. I was like, screw it, I will go ahead and show. So for 5 elements, I picked up sky, earth, water, fire, and air. For sky, I started with skydiving. When you're a middle class Indian, right? When you're a young youth person like you all are, one of the problems we face is our dreams are high class, our finances are middle class, our execution is low class. Okay, that is what the person was talking about. Okay. Now, what happens when you have low class execution and high class dreams and very few festivals to celebrate is, in my house, my father worked In my house, my father worked as a train driver, and my friend's father worked as a bus driver. So together in CBIT college, which was a posh college, we couldn't really celebrate anything. The only thing that I celebrated big time in my life was my mom's birthday. And the very first time I missed my mom's birthday was in the US. So on some nice emotional day, as my mother's birthday was approaching, I saw an advertisement saying you can take the flight on top into the sky and jump from there and wish your mom a happy birthday. So in an emotional moment, I paid. I jumped because I paid. Okay, otherwise my parents would have come and thrown me. Anta gatti dukanu kuda dukaleda savu po ani. Now when I jumped out of the plane, my friend had enough common sense to put a flag in my hand, and both of us screamed saying, "This is for the cause of disabled people in India." By the way, I forgot to wish my mom a happy birthday. This is the only photo in the entire video where I am smiling, and that is what I have been using all along. That video, when we put online, went viral. People were like, "Oh, you are inspiration. When you can't walk, you are flying," and all that. Subsequently, Amir Khan saw that video, and he was like, "You come over to Satyamev Jayate, we will talk." And here I was going ahead and making two fantastic videos, telling the truth. Nobody watched. This show, skydiving, over 1.2 million people in our country have watched that video, and I get regular emails saying you are an inspiration, which I am not, truthfully, because honestly I've done nothing at the ground. But then I understood that in our country, beyond infinity is masala. Okay, so I wanted to use that masala to go ahead and sell a message. So sky became skydiving. For Earth, I went into the oldest sediments on Earth called the Grand Canyon. I took a helicopter, went inside the canyon, stayed for almost a week. What happened? Nothing. My manager at Deloitte got upset. Phone signals were not available. Mom called me and said, "Tinnava," and all that. So I got really upset. Nothing major happened because of this. Then came the big dynamite idea, which was water. For water, I was initially proposing scuba diving. And my friend said, "Scuba diving anta honeymoon couples chestarra, peddaga cheddam edo okati." At which point, I started to wonder, what is the idea we need to think of? So when we were thinking, my friend said, "Pacific Ocean it side nunchi ostadi, Atlantic Ocean at side nunchi ostadi. You jump at the intersection of the two oceans." And the idea sounded good. Now please bear in mind, while learning is infinite, till 10th class, I told my father, "Dad, I will study, I will get state first rank." When the results came out for class 10th, I got state first from the bottom. I barely passed social by 1 mark. And that hurt, because one of the worst things that I heard in my life that day was when I scored 62% in my 10th class, my father cried, my mother cried, my sister did not even want to call me as her brother. But my teacher told me, "Neek ide ekkuva." Okay. Which was, I don't know whether it was a praise or an insult till today. I saw two equations saying happiness is equal to attainment minus desires. My teacher didn't have any desires on me. Okay, so whatever I attained became happiness for her. And what I thought was, every happiness that I already have because of my parents, plus whatever desires I will get in the future, is equal to achievement in my life. Because when you take desires to this side, attainment should automatically be possible. The other equation also, for a long